All right, let's start off with what we're seeing, and it's the wonderful campaign, Ain't No Mountain High Enough. The world is loving it, and you've unveiled it now in Africa in 3 economies, Nigeria, Kenya, South Africa. What does that tell us about the momentum for DHL Express on the continent?
Well, I think first and foremost, DHL, as I said last time actually, DHL feels very confident and positive about Africa. We just released our third quarter results, which showed very solid top and bottom line numbers. And as you just mentioned, we're committed to making significant investments in Africa. And as you said, the Ain't No Mountain High Enough campaign, or Speed of Yellow, is an example of that.
Okay, now from that media campaign, I've just said you're unveiling it in the 3 key regional economies of Africa, but we do know that the bulk of your efforts going forward are not going to be in these hegemons. It's going to be markets like Angola, Ethiopia. Why is that?
Well, our investment, our plans for our investment cover all 51 markets. DHL is represented in each of those countries. In fact, the only express company to be so. So it covers all markets, but some of our major investments next year, as you mentioned, covered Angola and Ethiopia, and some of the larger and faster growing economies as we see it across Africa.
What are you going to be doing? What does an infrastructure upgrade for DHL mean?
So our investments would cover primarily air upgrades. So again, and to your previous guest, there is a lot of naysayers and certainly a lot of reports around the global economy. But unlike some of our competitors, DHL's committed to maintaining the capacity that we have globally and critically in Africa. And in fact, we're going to be adding to our air capacity. So one part is air capacity. Secondly is ground infrastructure. So those would be things like facilities, upgrading our facilities to best-in-class vehicles. And then thirdly, and probably most importantly, a very large investment in our people. Which clearly we have over 100,000 globally and over 3,200 across Africa. They're probably the most important part that the customer sees on a daily basis. So a big investment in our people. Let's
continue on the physical infrastructure element, Charles, because we're told that in general, Africa's at least 10 years behind in terms of its infrastructure facilities, and a lot has to happen at a government level to sort out the roads, to sort out the ports, to sort out the facilities in airports. How do you overcome some of these limitations? Because ultimately you promise to deliver goods within 24 hours, 48 hours. You've got to really have a backup plan here.
Yeah, so I think we talked a bit about this when I was here last time. Africa's service levels and infrastructure are certainly challenging, but I'm very delighted to say, in the 6 months since we last spoke actually, that Africa's service levels from a DHL perspective are now on par with the very, very best in the world. So our infrastructure and what we have in Africa today is already delivering a very high quality product. That said, nothing can be complacent, no one can be complacent, so we're investing, as I mentioned, very heavily and pushing it forward to the next level. And a really good example of that actually is tomorrow we launch the first quality control centre in Africa, in Johannesburg, which will allow us to monitor real-time every shipment that moves in and out of Africa and around Africa. And that, from a differentiation perspective and from a customer perspective, is significant. So you're right, look, I mean, Africa is a challenging environment. Not a single week or day goes by where we don't have a particular challenge to face. But again, the 3,200 employees we have and the infrastructure that we have, the unparalleled infrastructure that we have, allows us to perform very, very well.
I mean, obviously you're capitalizing on new trade routes, and we are starting to see a little bit more momentum when it comes to Africa trade, but we are also seeing a lot more African products hitting the East Asian market. For you, what does that mean in terms of a paradigm shift?
Yeah, Lerato, you're correct. Intra-Africa trade is great for DHL, and we're a fairly good barometer of trade. So if our volumes are changing, and depending where our volumes are going, that tells you what's probably happening in the global and the African economy. So from our perspective, we're seeing plus 30% of our volumes move intra-Africa, and they're growing faster than other trade lanes. And not too surprisingly, the European trade lane is slightly more sluggish. But conversely, Asia and the Americas are growing faster. So a slight shift in trade dynamics, but definitely a growing trend of intra-Africa trade.
Okay, let's talk about your people, because I can see you're quite enthusiastic about that. I was reading up about the certified international system that you're introducing, customer care. What does that mean? Because you also have to work, I think, with a lot of people across the value chain. I don't know whether you use the subcontracting avenue and how you can just make everybody compliant.
For the most part, DHL is the only company that's wholly owned in Africa, so as well as operating in all those countries, we're also wholly owned. And as I mentioned earlier, we're 3,200 employees, or more than 3,200 employees across Africa. And as you rightly pointed out, this year we launched the Certified International Specialist Program. It's very, very simple. It's every single employee, including myself and including the CEO of DHL Express, has been through it, and it aims to differentiate our frontline staff. So making sure our couriers, our customer service agents, our credit controllers, myself, are clearly clued up in terms of what's the business we're really in, how do we add value to a customer supply chain, and making sure that our people really do differentiate at the touch point. So that was phase one, and that goes throughout 2012 as well. So it's a great global program that's been executed here in Africa as well, and going very well. And
very briefly, security issues. I mean, unfortunately, whenever we talk, oh, our tambo, this is the big issue. My baggage was tampered with, my baggage was not tampered with. Obviously, we've also got geopolitical risks. If you look at countries like Somalia and East Africa and the recent terror attacks, Nigeria as well, you've also got to be on top of your game when it comes to security of goods moving forward and national security issues.
Yeah, look, it's, as I said, it's a very dynamic world that we operate in, and Africa is no different. And yeah, every single day we have our challenges, and as you rightly point out, Lerato, security is a challenge. But DHL has 15 TAPA certified facilities in Africa. The next year we'll double that to 30. So most of our facilities now are completely TAPA certified. And TAPA, for those who are not so familiar, means that our facilities operate at a level that the security bodies are happy with. So for us, it's not an enormous challenge. It's not sort of the most primary thing that we concentrate on. But absolutely, every single day we concentrate on making sure that from a security perspective, we operate in the confines and the processes that are set down by the various governing bodies globally and here in Africa.
Okay, Charles,
and,
we have to...
in a very uncertain world, that coupled with our quality control centre, DHL's able to provide a level of certainty.